Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Factions 101. I'm your host, High Top, and we got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get right into it. Alright, so basically since last episode, I mentioned the upcoming PvP Labs Nordic 15-man's map. That map was basically between Violent and then against a Mod Podge of a faction that went by a lot of different names. We're just going to call them Regan bots because that's what they started off as. So basically that map happened, and to start off the map, Regan bots spent like a couple thousand dollars on crates, on pay to win stuff, to try and get a lead, which gave them around, if I remember, around a 9 billion lead. So that was kind of where it started. First day of Grace, and then Violent tried to catch up. Now Eco on Labs was kind of all over the place for the first map. They were just trying to still kind of fix what was needed to be fixed, and it went from Kane being the eco to dark zone fishing to normal fishing, and it was just kind of all over the place. Regardless, Violent ended up getting close to round it was around the same mark, around a little less, maybe like 7 to 6 billion behind by the end of Grace, and then eventually they ended up finding themselves like 15 billion down because Regan bots ended up spending more money. However, Grace disabled, TNT enabled, and Violent was able to raid the F top 3 faction that had 15 billion worth of value, and that was enough to push them over the edge and gain the #1 spot. So at that time forward, Violent was #1 on the map. TNT was also very scarce, which made it to where, attempts and raids weren't that common. There wasn't really a huge attempt, and for the long part, their jar was kind of messed up on Labs, so not every cannon worked, and they would blow after an X amount of, time. Fast forward a couple days into TNT, there was a raid event, and that was, it was kind of all over the place at the start. Regan bots, kind of won the first one. It's the best of 3, and so they won the first round, but their cannon was illegal. They had too many dispensers, as the rules were 500 dispensers to shoot at a base and to breach. And so that was the key there. Both factions used an illegal cannon round 1. Round 2, Violent remade a cannon from years ago, an old summer map cannon used for the same type of raid event. They remade it, they breached the buffer, and they won round 2. Round 3, basically the same thing happens. Violent breaches and wins the raid event. This pushes them even further on F top. So then through TNT, there were multiple attempts, but, there were several attempts actually where Violent managed to get like 6 walls off. They got 6 walls off of Regan bots twice. And so that was pretty crazy, especially the fact that they were able to hold for as long as they were afterwards, because Violent was able to get the 6 walls off pretty fast, and then Regan bots were able to kind of push them back a little bit. However, once the jar was fixed on Labs, the first day it was fixed, to where cannons wouldn't just randomly blow, Violent shot at Regan bots and they breached them. In a mere 30 minutes, they breached Regan bots and took all their value, winning the map. The map was closed the day after that, with Regan bots not really getting anywhere into Violent's base the entire map, and Violent raiding them. That's just about everything with the 15-man's Nordic map. I am going to go next to the MC Wars 10-man's map. It was the Joker comeback versus another kind of Mod Podge of a faction. A lot of beep beep guys. I would say it was majority beep beep. But then there was, a handful of other people as well. They went by Midbus. That was their name. It was a mix of a lot of different factions, but I would say majority of leadership was, Enrico and then Beep Beep guys. Map was pretty back and forth. There was a lot of money spent by both sides, and through all of Grace and through all of TNT, the value gap was just slim, very close to none. And each faction were overtaking each other every day. Like, it was a very balanced and even map. Through all of TNT, no one really had a super great attempt besides the first day where Joker was able to get like 4 chunks off of Midbus for the first day in like 45 minutes. So after that, it seemed like Joker was just going to run away with it. But to everyone's surprise, no faction was able to get much, far into the base after that. Both factions attempt each other every day, and both factions were pretty much held every day. There wasn't really a great big attempt until the very last day of TNT. Joker was trying to set up multiple times on mid bus. They were trying to find a way to win because they were down value at the time. So they were going to probably lose if they didn't get a raid off. What ends up happening is right before Joker's shield went down, while mid bus's shield is still down, mid bus starts to try and get a cannon up on Joker, before the shield so they can't buffer. And what happens is Joker at the same time tries to set up on mid bus to, try and raid them. And what happens is Joker gets their cannon up, starts shooting, ready to, force and everything, and then, well, no one found it. And mid bus got sniped. So mid bus got sniped in a very just odd occasion. You don't see it every day where they, you just forget to check walls as F-top 1, especially when it wasn't, dull at any moments. It was just whoever was checking walls for mid bus just simply just didn't do a good job, frankly. Regardless though, Joker split them, they sniped them, and they got all their value and won that map. So MC Wars went to Joker on their first comeback map. I believe it's in 2.5 years if I'm correct. So, big map for Joker. Hopefully they're, kind of here to stay for a bit. All right, now moving on to the following map that happened very, close after MC Wars was another PvP Labs Nordic map, but this time it was 10 mans. The map started and there were like 4 factions that were, kind of trying to play. There was Violent, there was my faction, VY Enemy, there was Ego, then there was Wankers, which is that Mod Podge of a faction, mid bus, beep beep. Reagan bots. It was just, all over the place. I think they've gone the most by wankers at this point, so that's what I'll call them. But originally, that's kind of what the case was. My faction, VY Enemy, I didn't really think Violent was going to play, so I just had my faction, and then Violent basically pulled up late, so we kind of played with them. There wasn't much of a merge, but, we could say it was a merge between the two. Why not? Then after that happened, Violent came back. Nobody really expected them to play the map again. And so then Ego and Wankers merged themselves. This led to, honestly, a pretty competitive map. Violent, up until that point, dog walked all their comp. The 15 man's map, they, it just wasn't close, frankly. Like, Violent was just running absolutely everything. This 10 man's map, however, was very back and forth. Violent was down, a couple of leaders with some people on vacation and others not playing, a ton. Regardless, though, it was still a lot of their main roster. It was going back and forth. EU time was, usually towards Wankers. They were usually, holding the EU time, and then NA time came around, and Violent usually dominated that. So it was very back and forth. Not that much money was spent between the two, so, the value gap never really got to anything crazy. However, the last day of TNT, Violent caught up and passed the Wankers briefly. And then this, they went into the EU time zone, and then Wankers overtook them again. However, at this point, Violent's trying to win some team fights. I was on trying to lead and win some team fights. But then every single one of Wankers' leaders got banned. I'm talking every single one, maybe except for one, but I think they had 6 or 7, all of them got banned. Basically, off of, one fight, I was able to get a lot of proof on a couple of their members to send to, the server staff to, justify a ban, and then screen shares for the rest of them. And so, Moveback was banned because he was, quite frankly, rage cheating. I don't know how he wasn't banned before, but eventually he was banned. And then Delusion, Anthony, Enrico, Kills for Days were all screen shared, and all of them were found to have cheats, and they were all banned. But at this point, Wankers is pretty upset, obviously, and they can't do much. They don't want to buy unbans. They're upset, and so what they end up doing is the old F disband macro. So that's what happened there. They disbanded, and that, before TNT, they disbanded before TNT. They were F-top 1 at the time, so, pretty bold move from them. Regardless, though, they disbanded. Violent wins the map, and the map was closed before TNT even started. No comp, no reason to have the map open. All right, now moving on to Mindcadia. Mindcadia was kind of, in a lull for a while. When TNT hit, not too much was going on. Raid events were happening. They were a mess. I don't even know who's won, half the raid events. Because either they've been redone, or, whoever actually breached doesn't win. Like, I don't know. Regardless, Mindcadia was kind of boring for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. There wasn't a lot of raid attempts. There wasn't a lot of, back and forth. But then eventually, late last week, randoms caught up on value. They caught up on value, and they were actually going to be at a point to where they were going to be value top 1 and start getting those points, really looking towards them, being able to win the map. And so, randoms caught up on value, but then they were insided several times, and because of this, with Mincadia's potential value system, they could not catch up anymore on value top. Kind of messed up if you ask me. I don't know really what the play there was by staff. They got insided, but you don't give them back the full, their potential worth per se. Regardless, basically, there was a lost cause for them to, go, have value top, get those points, and thus really leading to just, them being really demotivated. They're probably going to lose. Since that demotivation really overcame a lot of the randoms members, they were sniped. Yes, Avengers sniped randoms. They hit their core, and this was pretty much the nail in the coffin. People were they were saying they're checking walls. Apparently they weren't, and Avengers were able to snipe randoms. Like I said, that was pretty much the nail in the coffin. Yesterday, actually, in fact, Avengers ended up, being able to brute force Avengers a decent bit. Now, originally, after this raid, a rollback was confirmed to be given to randoms. There was a bedrock wall put up on their base, and they were going to get a rollback because apparently someone insided their pilters. If you know anything about regens, if someone insides your pilters or, messes them up, it's a really big deal. So regardless, that was thought to be the case. Sanimo himself said that the bedrock wall was going to stay up, but there was not going to be a rollback. They decided that there was not going to be a rollback. All points are going to be given to Avengers, and nothing was going to happen, but a bedrock wall was going to be up for the next 24 hours. However, to many people's surprise, the bedrock wall was taken down, and this led to randoms base being oceaned overnight. Another just questionable play by, some higher ups, but, I'm not going to, say too much about it. I might not agree with it, but, at the end of the day, it's what happened, and it's what they have to deal with. So it looks like Avengers is basically going to go away with the map win on Minecadia. The map ends here in a few days from now, Wednesday of this upcoming week. That's when the map is going to end on Minecadia, and it looks like Avengers are going to take their summer Minecadia map win. Alright, now moving into some upcoming maps. I got two I want to talk about. One is going on right now. It was released yesterday. Arcade MC, owned by Drippin, the leader of Violent. Basically, Arcade released yesterday, and I'm not gonna lie, it's doing really well. There's a lot of 4-man factions. It's a 4-man map, 3-second cannoning, 15 chunk buffers, yada yada yada. Regardless, I saw at least 10 factions yesterday that had 4 out of 4 people on. I don't know what it's looking like now. I'm sure some people have either folded or merged with each other. Regardless, it's a pretty big map, so I'm happy to see it. Regardless, there's Joker, I believe, playing, IRA's playing, Wankers is playing, Cookies is playing, Ego's playing, Rage is playing, there's Wu-Tang is playing, and there's more too that I'm forgetting. But I don't think I've seen a map this big in a long time, as far as pure number of factions playing that are competitive. Now, not all these factions are actually trying to win. I believe a lot of them are going for PvP and stuff, but still, I mean, this is unprecedented for 2022 to now. This doesn't really happen, and it's great to see now during the summer that this is happening. All right, now the second map I want to talk to is possibly going to be one of the biggest maps throughout the summer. PvP Labs is hosting its Exodus summer map this upcoming Friday, June 30th. It's going to be a 50-man's map. Yes, 50 mans, in the faction at one time. 50-man's map, unlimited roster, $5,000 USD payout. Yeah, so if you win, you're going to get $5,000 PayPal. So that's, pretty big deal. That map is upcoming June 30th. That map right now is looking to be between FaZe, which is basically all of these hodgepodge, modge podge, yada 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 factions that I've been talking about put into one. So, Wankers, Regenbots, Ego, Midbus, all of them put into one, mixed with some of the Avengers squad from Minecadia. Basically, they are FaZe for the upcoming map, and then they're going to be playing against Meatheads, which, as y'all know, is my faction. Meatheads is looking right now to be, a lot of the Meatheads core guys, mixed with a lot of other guys that have, come back and, they're playing with Meatheads. Some people we've taken from, Falcon, AK-47, and then Joker is looking to be basically merged with Meatheads. So, it should be a very fun map, and, I'm looking forward to it. All right, now moving on to the power rankings. Power rankings are going to be a good bit different than, usual, from last week or, last episode, maybe a month ago, whatever. Regardless, power rankings are going to look a lot different from the last time I did them. So, all right, for the 2 floaters that I usually do, I'm going to start off with Cookies. Now, Cookies, I don't know too much on, but I've seen them winning a handful of maps over, the recent couple weeks. So I'm going to recognize them for being a solid faction up towards the top right now. Now, moving into the second floater, I'm going to give it to IRA. Now, the pure fact that IRA isn't, in the top 5 and is a floater right now is because they haven't played in a long time, but they're coming back to play arcade. And I'm going to give them, due respect for what they were able to do up until this point. So they're going to be a floater. And the top 5 is going to start out with Wankers. Like, I know, I've kind of been talking a lot about Wankers losing, and they have been, but, they're still a decent faction. Basically, they've been able to do, a handful of stuff. If they lose this arcade map again, I'm going to have to kick them out of the top 5 next week. But regardless, I'm going to have Wankers in there for now, just because they've been, playing a lot of maps, and they have been, the second best faction to Violent for most of the time. But regardless, that's a pretty tall task in itself. Now, moving up to the 4th spot, lowest spot for randoms. It's kind of sad to see randoms and meatheads, after dominating the power rankings for the, first handful of episodes, they're kind of falling off. Meatheads isn't even included, to say the least. But randoms has dropped to number 4. They've been raided. They basically lost the map. Not looking too good for randoms. But I think, number 4, still they've been able to do a lot up until this moment. Randoms number 4. At number 3, I have Joker. Joker comeback. They were able to get it done on MC Wars, and they're doing pretty well on arcade right now. With the map win against, Wankers, who are a solid opponent, excuse me. But Joker number 3, I think that's pretty justified. A lot of these maps are getting to be, bigger man maps, so, there's not the buff that I gave to the people who played Minecadia for power rankings, because they had such a bigger roster than, a lot of the other factions. A lot of factions now have, similar sized rosters. So the difference from casual and comp is not going to be as much in my eyes. Moving on to number 2 is Avengers. Yes, they've been, dominating Minecadia the last couple weeks, and they simply are going to win. They're going to win Minecadia, big map. They're going to beat randoms who have had a grip on Minecadia up until this point. So very deserving second spot for Avengers. And a lot of people might be wondering who would be ahead of, Avengers in the power rankings. But I think the answer is pretty obvious. Violent is number 1. Now, Violent, in my opinion, is one of the better factions in the past year or so. Really able to, get done every map they've played. They've been very successful in winning, majority of the maps they've played. I don't even know if they've really lost a map, but, they, more than likely they probably have. Regardless, though, Violent's just been dominating. They dominated the 15-man's map. 10-man's map, they were looking to, come back and win that before their competition disbanded. So, Violent deserves the number 1 spot. They have a big enough roster to, justify the casual to comp, difference. But I'm going to put Violent there for now. I don't know if Violent's planning on playing many more maps throughout the summer, but for at least this week, Violent is going to be number 1. Moving into MVP of the week, I think this one might be kind of obvious. I'm going to give it to the squad from Avengers that sniped randoms. I think, that's a big task. That put their enemy into the ground with basically no hope of, coming back. But that is the, MVP of the week. They were able to snipe them, basically just finish the map once and for all. And so, good job to them. Now for Clown of the Week, I gotta give it to Wankers leaders. Yes, Enrico, Anthony, Kills for Days, Move Back, all getting banned at the same time, leading to a disband of their faction. I think it's pretty justified to have Clown of the Week for them after getting banned, all of them getting banned and ruining the map for their faction. So yeah, that's about it for this week's episode of Factions 101. If you have anything to, add for news and whatnot, go to the Discord, Factions 101, Discord links in our description. We've now moved to posting more news in the Discord itself. So if you're looking for, some daily faction news, join that Discord and you can be, satisfied. So yeah, until next time.